Yeah. I'm not in the mood to surprise anyone, and needless to say, this episode didn't surprise me. I'll put it bluntly, I didn't like it. That has nothing to do with the fact that this episode had my least favorite writer on the show joining forces with the writer from Johnny Test to make a Spike episode because Charlotte Fullerton's last collaboration worked out so fucking well. Wow, this episode never stood a chance. But then I learned that Megan McCarthy was going to help write this episode and maybe keep things in check. She did not. Well, what am I talking about? Let's review Power Ponies. Oh, by the way, at some point this video will be lost in a copyright limbo, so if you're going to embed it or link it, embed the version I upload on my Dailymotion account. The episode starts with Spike reading a comic book, and he gives the backstory of the comic's main villain, the Maniac. Hey, you guys already kinda used that pun. The backstory of the Maniac isn't exactly interesting, and it definitely isn't important.
The Maniac wouldn't have even known if Humdrum hadn't slipped up and told her all about it. The Power Pony's bumbling and totally useless sidekick.
Exposition, rushing out ASAP.
You know what would be a lot more interesting? If we actually saw all of the comic panels as Spike was talking. But that's just a nitpick. My complaints are a bit further down the line. But still, it's obscuring the comic for almost no reason whatsoever. Yeah, I know that the episode is going to suck everyone into the comic book later, but the ponies and the heroes can have different appearances. Spike talks about the Power Pony's sidekick, Humdrum, who is pretty useless. Yeah, we'll get to that. Apparently, Twilight and the others have to help clean up Celestia's castle because their last visit was so invigorating. I keep hearing that they're going to fix up the castle for Twilight, and that's definitely a possibility. My main problem is that going to the castle serves nothing to the story and only bogs down the pacing. They're cleaning up the castle, but no one needs Spike. Excuse me, didn't Twilight just say?
We're gonna make any progress fixing up Luna and Celestia's old castle tomorrow, we all have to do our part. We don't want to be too tired to lend a hoof. Or claw.
Think through your dialogue. Twilight tries to get Spike to read his comic and talks about the sidekick saving the day. Spike says that he's only there for comic relief, and then he steps on a bucket, only for comic relief. You know, there's this thing called subtlety. It doesn't damage a story to use it sometimes. Spike goes to read his comic, and finds that the last page is either missing or blank. He sees a message on the comic that happens to open a portal to it, because he bought it from an enchanted comic book store. Alright, here's a thought, just a little thought. The castle is filled with old knowledge and most likely old spells. Why couldn't a spell from the castle send him into the book? Without that, going to the castle is pointless, and having the comic book suck him in is just hand-waved. So the main six get sucked into the comic book in a segment that has more than just a passing resemblance to a dog and pony show, with some wonky filters over it. When they wake up, they find out that they're in Meritopolis, and the main six are the Power Ponies, and Spike is Humdrum. I'm going to call them by their actual names for convenience sake. Apparently the Maniac is stealing an orb from a museum. We'll talk about her in a bit. Actually, we won't because there's nothing to talk about. With her, what you see is what you get. We get a sequence that shows the main six getting used to their new powers. Pinkie has super speed. Applejack has a lasso that she doesn't know how to use. Question, why is she better with a lasso in the real world than she is when she gets super lasso powers? Twilight gets nerfed. Yep, because that's an upgrade. Alicorn Princess that can do all kinds of powerful magic can now just shoot beams. Are you sure that Spike is the one we're supposed to feel sorry for?
Dash, quick, you're Zap, and your superpowers controlling the mighty forces of nature.
Hey, it's kind of like her in real life. And you've noticed my first big problem with the episode. The main six are pretty much superheroes in actuality. The only difference here is that none of them actually know how to use their normal abilities. So getting superpowers makes them weaker.
Lightning, not a tornado!
Whoa, didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I think I know who wrote this part. Pinkie goes into the tornado because, I don't know. And because she brought cupcakes, Rainbow gets hit in the face and gets thrown into the tornado. Fluttershy apparently has the ability to turn into a monster if she gets angry. Hey, that's kinda like every fucking Fluttershy episode ever. Here's an idea. It only took me 5 seconds to think about it, so you might not like it, but try giving it a shot. Give them original powers that they don't normally have. You know, turn Fluttershy into Beast Boy, give Rainbow the ability to duplicate, give Rarity the power to turn invisible. I don't fucking care! Just give them something we can't see in any other episode. Speaking of Rarity, she has the ability to think of anything and make it appear. The first thing she thinks about is a tea set. Okay, Charlotte Fullerton, you wrote Suited for Success. Megan McCarthy, you wrote Sweet and Elite. Both episodes showing Rarity at her best and brightest. If there's any character you turn into a moron, it shouldn't be her.
Well, this has been quite the mane-raising experience.
That's not even a pun! Spike takes the Electro Orb the Maniac was stealing and trips over his cape. Then he loses the orb. And all of now, he realizes that he's Humdrum. I thought that he was supposed to be the least competent of the team. Yeah, this is a very common pitfall in episodes trying to give characters self-esteem, but a pitfall nonetheless. They make everyone around them a useless idiot who can't do shit for themselves. I mean, it's one thing if they don't understand their new powers, that they already have in reality, but to act completely stupid, like summoning a T-set or running into a tornado, then you've gone a bit too far. And this is my main problem with the episode. They hit every wrong point in trying to construct this plot. They don't need to make the main six incompetent. They could, with newfound powers, get overconfident, which would lead to their downfall, and have Spike still save them. That would reach the same conclusion, be more entertaining, and wouldn't reduce the main six to invalids.
Let me get this straight. We've been sucked into some kind of comic book world?
Technically, they're called graphic novels, and yes, we've established that. It took 7 minutes to get in here, and it was pretty obvious what was going on. We don't need the redundant dialogue.
And now we've all got superpowers.
Almost all of us have superpowers.
Yeah, I mean, Twilight really got gypped here. Spike leads them to Maniac's hideout.
Is that a shampoo factory?
Why, yes, it is Applejack. We've established that before the opening theme. Thank you for joining us on this epic adventure. What would we do without you?
Or the power ponies are coming in. That's not a plan.
Alright, it's starting to get old. Spike decides to hang back because, you know, Robin never did anything in Batman. The bad guys come out, and
Freeze ray.
snowballs. Yep, question, why is Rarity instantly able to master a power she never had before? And yet Applejack, Twilight, and Rainbow are having trouble with powers that they've had all of their life. Can we get some consistency, please? Either they can all control their powers, or none of them can. You can't pick and choose like that. And Fluttershy is just as useless as Twilight in this battle because, take a guess. Can it be like something we've seen in so many other Fluttershy episodes? Yep, pretty much. The Maniac comes out and uses something called the Hairspray Ray of Doom, which paralyzes Rainbow. So what's the best thing you could do at a villain who could stop you in your tracks? Run right towards them, of course! Could you imagine if they did that during Dragonshy? Speaking of which, Fluttershy's defensiveness of her friends is completely gone. You see, if this were Dragonshy, this is where she'd hulk up. But she doesn't, so she gets sprayed too.
Oh, Humdrum, why in all of Metropolis would I use the Hairspray Ray of Doom on you?
Fuck subtlety, am I right?
What am I supposed to do? I'm useless.
Yeah, Spike never does anything useful ever. That brings me to my next point. Wouldn't you think that Spike would have already learned this lesson? Fused with both of his exploits from Owlswell that ends well, where he learned that he can't be replaced, and the Crystal Empire, where he was responsible for saving said empire.
Congratulations, Power Ponies! You shall live just long enough to see me fire the instrument of your destruction!
So now I'm in deep trouble. I mean, one more joke, this death ray, and I got it. Somehow I managed to find cover in what does Baron von Rufus do? He starts monologuing. He starts like this prepared speech about how feeble I am compared to him, how inevitable my defeat is, how the world will soon be his, yada yada yada. Yammering. I mean, a guy has me on a platter and he won't shut up.
There's a difference between parroting cliches and using cliches. This is why we don't talk to the writers of Johnny Test. They don't know the difference, and you should not expect them to. They aren't at our intelligence level.
In our world, Spike, Humdrum always comes through when we need him.
Show, don't tell. The Maniac keeps monologuing because we need to keep as little suspense in the scene as humanly possible. Not even the shows you are trying to make fun of had the villains monologuing this much. Spike manages to save the day and lets the Power Ponies escape.
Over there! There, idiots!
You know you have powers too, right? You're insane, not stupid. There's a difference. By the way, Rarity's superpowers are incredibly broken. I like it how the villain is just sitting there with her fully powered laser while her henchmen are getting their asses kicked and doing absolutely nothing. Fluttershy doesn't want to power up, but then the Maniac crushes a bug. This makes Fluttershy go crazy. Bravo, guys, you finally learned how to do a parody. The problem is, it's not a parody of superhero shows. It's a parody of Friendship is Magic. You guys are parodying yourself. That's not a good thing. The Maniac gets tied up because I don't know, and the main six get ejected from the comic book. Then the comic book disappears. Wow, that was pointless. You know, that's why I was glad that Daring Don't wasn't a dream or a fanfiction. It means that the episode actually had purpose. This episode doesn't. I mean, there was a golden opportunity for one of the keys to the chest to be in the comic. Twilight uses a spell to get them into the comic in order to retrieve it, and you actually have a purpose for this episode. But no, instead it can be as forgotten as Spike's comic that disappears because I don't know. This episode had a lot of potential, and there were many different places that they could have taken it, but they took it towards none of them. But that's not what bothers me. What bothers me is how nerfed the main six had to be. They knew how to use their powers only when the plot demanded that they use their powers, despite being very similar to their real-world powers, to the point where half of the time I couldn't tell the difference. You don't have to make other characters useless to make one character feel useful. In fact, doing that undercuts the message you are trying to teach. I'm pretty sure they were going for a parody with the superhero cliches. Here's the thing. They weren't making fun of superhero cliches, they were just straight up using superhero cliches. If you want to do a parody, you've got to mock the cliches. If you're doing a story in earnest, then you should use as few cliches as possible. The moral wasn't one that Spike needed to learn. Hell, when I come to think of it, wouldn't it have been a better moral for Fluttershy? Isn't she the one who's more prone to feeling useless? No, I'm not angry at the what could have been, although there's a hell of a lot here. I'm angry at the lack of subtlety, the obvious moral, inconsistent powers, poor usage of superhero cliches, very bad story structure, and the flanderization of at least rarity. And before you say anything, no, I'm not actually mostly mad at Charlotte Fullerton, although she's most likely to blame for the inconsistent powers. Having a poor villain and characterizing side characters poorly, these are the hallmarks of Megan McCarthy. So yes, out of my least favorite writer on the show, a writer from Johnny Test, and my favorite writer, I'm saying the one who done screwed up this one is my favorite writer.
Whoa, didn't see that coming.